Welcome everybody. Going to give you an update of what we're doing before we get started. We're on the roof of the trailer. As you can see, it's in decent condition, but looks can be deceiving. It just has a decent coat on here. As I'm working on the roof, the edges, I'm seeing little holes that have been punched in the different spots. It leaks from all of the penetration points, and it's 50 years old. So even if it doesn't leak other than these penetrations through the roof, which could be sealed up relatively easy, it's still a ticking time bomb. And since I'm doing all the work inside, I want to ensure that it's all protected, lasts as long as possible, and that maintenance is low. On the back, I use that ribbed metal, which I'm going to continue over this part of the roof, as well as whatever I do on the front porch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2x4 strapping every 2 feet over the length. So running the length, over the width, I mean. So running the length of the trailer every 2 feet, I will have 2x4s running down screwed directly into these rafters. Then I'll take this metal, however long it is from this eave to this eave, plus the overhang, I will bend it over the roof. So this is already proven. I'm not just guessing this is going to take that bend. It's a very shallow bend. The nice thing is that it's not like there's a ridge up here and you have straight piece, and it still would be low slope and you've got driven rain. It's just going to be solid sheets running all the way across. All these penetrations are going to go away. I'll be using the modern solutions to come up through for vents, or I could go out of the eave end down there or here if I wanted to, but it will protect my investment. The other thing that I do when I'm making decisions like this is I think about, so somebody could say that's a waste of $1,500, $1,600, however much it costs to do this roof. You could just seal these up and just roll with it. Well, sealing this roof would be coating the whole roof. It would be working on all these penetrations and spending a good deal of time. And the amount of time that it will take me to do all this, I could do the whole roof that I'm going to do. And then you have to look at the cost difference. 5-gallon buckets of that roof sealant to seal this up, whatever I end up doing to here. So yes, that's going to be a lot cheaper, but it's not comparing $0 to $1,500. It's going to be comparing probably several $100s to $1,500. So the difference is what I think about in price of doing one thing versus the other, and then I compare the time. Time's about the same. It's only a couple, maybe $1,000 difference. And then when you go to rent this, how much does it seem like a difference in the when you're thinking about how much you're going to be renting, how much you paid for it, what's your total investment? It's such a small thing to go ahead and re-roof this versus keeping it like it is, and for it to just be something that's still, like I said, a 50-year-old trailer roof versus brand new, peace of mind, and it will look much nicer, make gutters be able to be applied to it easily, and just overall a more straightforward project versus sort of the screwing around that it will take to make sure this roof is good to go. The supplies for this project are a bunch of 16-foot 2x4s and 12-foot 2x6s. The 12-foot were a much better value than buying the 16-foot pieces, which it did sort of challenge my thinking, because anytime you're going for long lines, you want the longest boards possible. But the 2x4s by 16 were a good value. And then these were $10.18 each, versus the 16-foot long 2x6s were $20 and I believe 80 cents a piece. So sort of per board foot or per linear foot, you're getting a much better value out of the 12-footers. And in the end, this is going to be aluminum wrapped and behind gutters. going to go ahead and bring y'all fully up to date to this point, because I know people who are doing similar work are going to come across this video, not just regular viewers of my stuff. They're just kind of watching for fun, and this might not apply to them. There's going to be people who are seeking out this type of information as I did before I began this. First time I heard of doing something like this was the man at the metal place that sells this metal, and he said he has a single wide trailer, same roof, and he did the same thing on his roof. He suggested doing this, but he said if you want to go real cheap, you can just stick the metal, go metal to metal, bend it over top the current metal that's here, and then just put one screw in each corner where they overlap the next sheet. So 4 screws per sheet. It takes about 22 or 23 sheets to do your roof line if it's a trailer like this one. And so he could get away in that case with just the metal, which I think it's about $800 worth of metal, and then probably a bag or 2 bags of screws with what he's doing. Me, I'm getting out of this not that cheap. It's about, I think, $300 some worth of 2x4s, and then $120 worth of 2x6s to create the fascias, and then about $800-ish in metal, and then there's going to be the odds and ends screws and whatever else I end up getting for if I run the vents up through the roof, all that type of stuff. So again, I'm using 16-foot 2x6s. I mean 2x4s, use the right words, 2x4s to do these, the strapping. You could use 1x4s. I like the idea that the 2x4s are stronger, so any unevenness in the roof is going to get pulled out more so using 2x4s than if you used 1x4s as strapping. Mostly used the 16-foot ones, but I threw a couple 8-foots in a few places just to stagger the ends to where all the end cuts wouldn't be in the same place. These are the screws that I got, and a little tip for you: if you buy a 25-pound bucket of these exact screws at Lowe's, they're $120. Or you can buy this, it's half the amount of screws for $39, so $40 for 800 screws. Or you can pay $120 for it was 1,500 some screws. So $80 for me to buy 2 of these buckets versus $120, so $40. So you get one of these buckets for free if you want to spend the same amount of money. Just buy these smaller buckets, and they're easier to fool with, come up on your roof. They are T25, and out of that T25 is the drive, that right there. And out of those 800 screws, this is how many I had left right at the very end. So 1 bucket was enough for me to do everything up until this point. But I've got 2 buckets, and I'm going to do the fascias, which I'm not sure. I'll probably use these, and then I'm going to do some pieces at the end to kind of finish off, and then I'll wrap that for a cleaner look and to sort of just give me a better connection of that last sheet on both sides. The trailer roof is a whole lot stiffer feeling now. So even if I walk, now you're going to hear a lot of crunching, but even when I'm walking, now I'm stepping on those rafters below, and the roof is, each one's not squishing as much. It's sort of like the same idea as adding bridging in framing. It's made it so much stiffer. So I really like that. This feels solid as a rock. You can hear it's not creaking. It's pulled down tight, and these screws are 3 inches. So I was worried they wouldn't be long enough, but you couldn't buy big buckets of screws any longer than this stock at Lowe's. So what I did is I used my countersink bit, which is this right here. I use this on pretty much everything anyway. I think it makes the heads be able to pull things down better than if you just run the screw head directly into it. I don't know if I'm wrong on that, but it just feels that way while I'm doing stuff, and I've been doing this type of stuff for a while now. Where was I? By countersinking those, I'm countersinking the full depth. That black part right there is the countersink. So that puts the countersink for the head about a 1/2 inch into the wood. So these screws, I'm sort of turning them into 3.5 inch long screws basically, which is really what I wanted. So I'm going, it's about as far down that, I think it's only 1.5 inches the material under there, but I've also got the thickness of the roof metal, which is barely anything, and then some insulation between the roof deck and those trusses. To find that, this is a hard thing, I think will seem kind of tricky for a lot of people. So you can see the line of where those trusses run. You've got to find those, and they're on the other side of metal. And what I do is this. Each one, I just kind of went like this, and I can feel it in my feet. So you got to wear some shoes you can kind of feel through. And then I would just sort of feel the difference and split the difference between my toes, and then I would just mark it. And then I just move to the next one, and I kind of feel this, and I'm just gauging, you know, where it is, and I mark it. And I ended up only marking the edges and the ridge and the other edge, and then I would snap a chalk line from here to here over these two. And then each time when I went to screw them, I would step my foot like this. Most of the time, I would step my foot, and I could say, okay, that truss is more this way or that way to the line that I made, and I would just kind of angle my screws one way or the other. And then there were a few places where I just kind of missed it all together, and well, wherever they are, I would just say, you know, forget that, I'm not going to angle it, and I would just come over and I would just run my screws and not countersink them. You don't have to. I mean, these things will go into anything. I've got kind of a hump right here. When you sight down, it humps up right here. That's where the wall is to the bathroom. So I think that, I don't know, just the way it is a little bit of a hump. It won't make any difference. Again, the roof angle's so low on this, and the way you're viewing it, you're not going to see much of that. And in the end, I'm not going for perfect. I'm just going for a whole lot better than what it currently is and will be soon. But yeah, I think it's going to look really neat. It's going to look like, it's probably some term you're not supposed to say or something, but like a gypsy wagon. The idea of that sort of, I don't know, that's just what I kind of think of. But just having that kind of curved roof with the lines, I think it's going to look pretty neat. Again, you're not going to see it. You can maybe go walk up there and see it. And from the road, you'll just barely see a little bit of it. My plan for the ends of the trailer is I'm using a 2x6 for the fascia boards. So that's 5.5 inches. I'm going to bevel the tops of them to where when the fascia board is plumb, the top of it will have I'll rip an angle on it that matches this radius running off the edge. And I'm actually going to screw my metal, I think, into that 2x6 farthest out, sort of in the center of it. So about 3/4 inch from the edge of the wood. And that way, I think that 2x6 is what's going to establish most of the line running down the trailer. And if I screwed it here and it's hitting here, it might dimple it hard. So I think closest to the edge will be best. Across this seam here, of course, this is arched. From the bottom of that 2x6 fascia board, I want to snap a line from this side to that side. Then I'll measure from the top of this 2x4 down to that snapped line. And then I'll buy something probably like a 2x8 or something along those lines. The bottoms of them will be flush with the fascia board on both sides. And then I'll mark this angle out and cut that angle. And then I'll screw it here and then screw 2 screws into each one. And then I'll aluminum wrap that. And then I may end up doing some sort of kind of curved trim piece. I'm not sure. Just what I'm saying is that piece right there, gable cap or something like that, maybe. Whatever that's called. But if I don't do that, what I may do is just let the metal overhang, maybe like the ribs width over, so about 1.5 inches or however wide those ribs are. And then just that would create a natural drip edge over, and then I'll come up with my white wrapped, you know, piece of lumber that I put there. So the underside of the metal is white, so it'll be wrapped in white, and then the underside's white. And then before I put my metal down, I'll put drip edge across here. And then when I do the aluminum wrapping on my fascia board, before the gutters go on, that aluminum wrap will tuck up under that drip edge. And if any water ever gets on this roof, it's, you know, it's a metal roof, so it'll make its way down there. This isn't like squeezed so tight that moisture couldn't get down there. And I think it'll be ventilated enough to where any kind of moisture got in there, it's not going to build up to a point where it can't get out of there. And it's not going to get in there from underneath, and it's not going to get in there from over top unless there was a leak. I don't know. Again, we're going for good enough. We're not going for, this isn't in an Egyptian tomb or something like that. I'm not concerned with how long it lasts in those super long time frames. It's just a trailer, and once I'm done with it, it's going to outlive me or outlive its purpose for me. So that is as far of an explanation as I can think of. And I screwed the devil out of it. I didn't do something like just put one screw at every place. And it really truly is. I mean, I feel like I'm walking on a normal framed roof right now. I mean, maybe if I'm, no, it feels solid as a rock compared to walking on a normal trailer. The difference is between this roof and that roof is this has solid decking. So this has the rafters every 16 inches, and then it has OSB over top that. So I can walk anywhere I want on this. Once I do this, it's not like I'm filling in. And, you know, I could do something like put 1.5 inch, you know, rigid insulation, but that would cost a fortune to do something like that. You could sheathe this in OSB. If I was going to sheathe it in OSB, I would just rip this metal roof off and sheathe directly to the you know, the little rafters that are on there. But my point is I can walk around on this. Once this is on, I'll only be able to step on that. If you step between it, you'd mash your metal down. So that's it. I'll do further explanations as we go.